Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So on demand, I'll be covering today the RE framework. So a deep dive into RE framework, explaining each stage and also how it works, how are the business exception, system exception handled, how are the logic applied. And I have with me today Nived here. He has his YouTube channel and he has a good hands-on on RE framework. You can check his channel for videos or different projects on RE framework. He'll keep asking doubts, questions, and the concept he thinks needs clarification in terms of RE framework. And I'll try my best to explain it. So before starting, we have the solution here, which would iterate on data row. So here is this Excel, which the solution would be processing. So what the solution would be doing is that it would be picking up each row, processing it in an application, which is a UI demo. That's a dummy application. So it would be entering all these records into that UI demo application and bringing down the status to right here. So if it's a success, success would be written here. If it's a failure, then accordingly the bot will write failure here. And this would act as a status summary file of the process. So before deep diving into each stage, init, get transaction, process transaction, and end process, I'll just execute the bot once so that you have a fair understanding of what is the solution doing. And based on that, we would then deep dive more into each state to understand the basics. So I'll just execute it, post which I'll open that Excel and showcase the execution result. And then we'll start understanding the first state, which is the init state. So it will pick up each row and enter the data here in the UI demo. And once all the data has been finished, it would stop processing. So there were only 3 records and they all have been entered in UI demo application. And if I just open this file, so I see here the status is successful for all the 3 records because there was no failure. So this is how basically the RE framework operates. And then there is also retry mechanism and handling of the different exceptions taken care of in this whole architecture. So if I talk about the transaction item or on which it iterates. So as of now, we were having a Excel file, which we read using redrain. So we had a data table and it iterated on data row. Similarly, we also have queues on which it iterates. So then we have queue items. So like in an Excel, we have a lot of rows. So the bigger class you could see as a data table, and inside that you have a data rows. Similarly goes with queue, that you have this structure, and inside that you have a lot of different transactions which are called queue items. Similarly, the RE framework could also iterate on mails where the trigger point is mail. So you keep on receiving mail. So then your transaction item becomes mail message. Then there are also times when you're dealing with files. Then your transaction item could be string, and the above to that, the base class could be an array of strings or a list of strings and like that. So let's start with the first state, which is the initialization state. So RE framework is an architecture, or you can say an enterprise framework, which is developed so that your code is all very modular and compact, and you have the retry mechanism logic in place because there's this file in RE framework. So there are certain number of files and workflows which you get it as default already here. So if you just go to this framework section, so all these files are already created. You have to just manipulate and modify it according to your need. So you have closed all applications. So the best practice says that whatever applications you're using in your process, they must be closed before the actual processing starts, so that there is no conflict. So suppose if you are dealing in with Excel or you're dealing in with Explorer or Chrome, so the best practice is that in the init state itself, you close all those applications. Then you have retry current transaction. So suppose for any XYZ reason, your process breaks. So you can retry it instead of, abruptly ending the whole process. You retry it. You retry it twice, thrice, and that number should be made configurable so that you can anytime change it and retry it more or retry it less. Then you have take screenshots so that if on a particular screen it is breaking, so later on when you debug it or when the support teams looks into it, so you could have the screenshot like visual thing to actually know that where the bot went faulted. And kill all process is the same like close all applications, or you can say in close all applications, you just close in all the applications involved in the process, like the Excel or maybe UI demo applications in our case. And kill all processes is basically you kill in the process which are running on the system. Suppose Excel. So Excel is not an.
So my question is, Anmol, what is the difference? Like, what is the difference between this close all application and kill all process? Or what are the scenarios in which we use this kill all process?
See, what best practice I usually follow is kill all process is like when you start in, or suppose you have Outlook or SAP, things like that involved in your process. So you usually kill
Hmm.
all those
Yes.
process before actually
Hmm.
processing anything. So in init state only,
Hmm.
before reading the config, usually because all these things what you have to close are stored in config.
Hmm.
But that's
Hmm.
not necessary, because if you have your
Yes.
config
Yes.
already opened, then your process is not going to run because you already have the config open. It won't be able to read.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
what you can do is you can, drag
Hmm.
in a kill process activity from the activity panel and hard code the Excel in it so that the config is never opened, or even if it's opened,
Hmm.
so then it gets closed so that bot is at least able to read in the configuration file.
Hmm.
So yeah, you could,
Yeah, I understood.
yeah,
So, like even if we accidentally open the process, when we run it, it will due to kill all process, it will actually close it.
yes, yeah. So that is the best
Like
practice you should
it
be
will actually
following.
kill it.
Be- because you would never know that if the client has opened the config on its machine, because he is not aware of the processing of UiPath,
Yeah,
that it needs to be closed.
yeah,
So if you talk that there is no very
got it.
broader or clear line description between close all applications and kill processes, these are some basic files which has
Hmm.
been provided, and you can obviously manipulate around it and use it according to your needs. So if you just
Hmm.
open this close all application, what they have provided is you can close all the applications, like you can close in the UI demo and close all applications. And talking about the kill process, you can kill the Excel, or you can kill the Outlook or SAP if it's being used in your process. So you can do that
Hmm.
thing over here. And coming back to the init state,
Okay.
so if we see here, the first thing which we do is we initialize the system exception to nothing. So
Why we initialize the system exception is nothing.
okay, so
Uh,
this also is something not very necessary. It depends process to process. So the solution which we are having as of now, we are doing retry in process transaction state. And if there is any system exception,
hmm.
what are we actually doing is that we are sending it back to init state. So if you see here, so if
Hmm.
there is any exception here, we are going back to init state. This is the system exception state, and we are going back to init state. So now when you have got an exception here, which means that your system error
Hmm.
variable has some value. Okay, so if you open here, there are
Yeah.
some global variables already defined. So you have one system exception. So this
Yeah.
thing, this particular
Hmm.
variable is having a value. Now,
Hmm.
if there is any exception, so we are going back here
Hmm.
because we are closing our
Hmm.
application and opening it again. So because you are retrying, you have to make it nothing. Then only you can start afresh. because if you're already having an exception stored, then there is no point of retrying. It's like you got an exception,
Mm.
you made it nothing, you made it empty, that I've got no exception, and retry it again. It's like starting afresh. So that's why we do this system exception nothing.
Oh,
Then this is not something mandatory.
so if we didn't provide it,
Hmm.
yeah, if we didn't provide it, what happened is it will actually cause a exception also in the init state also. That is why we provide it as nothing here.
Yeah, because if you are not initializing to nothing, then there's no point retrying. Okay, system. So okay,
Yeah,
if you did
yeah,
not
got it, got
initialize to nothing, so what happens? You have a once you come out of init state, you have value in system exception. Okay,
it.
if you have not initialized it to nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
When it comes out of system
Mm,
in its state, so it will have these two states, to go to get transaction or to go to end
mm,
process. So it will see,
mm,
it will go to get transaction only if system exception is nothing, but you are already having a value because you did not
mm,
make it nothing. So, and it will then check this state, and here it will say system exception is not nothing,
mm.
and then your process will end.
Not.
So
Okay,
this is actually the use of
got it now.
doing it. But then it also depends on
Yeah.
that whether you are on retrying, you're making it go to init, or you're not making it to go to init. So it all depends on the type of logic or on the type of
So as
architecture you decide for the project.
so in most of our real-time projects, we actually modify the RE framework according to the requirement. So at that time, it
Yeah,
will change it. Did you
yes,
mean like that?
definitely. Yeah, yeah. So usually we do not do this that we make it go to init state. That's not what usually the real
Mm,
time in real time project it happens.
mm,
It is like you either retry it here only,
mm,
that it's like this. This is how the
mm,
transaction goes,
mm.
this, and you name it here retry.
And you can put the conditions,
You
I
can
think.
put the condition here. Or you can make it go to get transaction, or you can make it go to some other state. So it totally depends on the type of process you're dealing in.
Okay, fine.
So coming forward, so we have here, we read in the configuration
Mm,
file. So that is the backbone of
mm,
everything, wherein you store everything, because it's a best practice that you don't hard code anything in your process. Instead, you store it in config and read it from there. So we have done this. If config is nothing, then you read the process. So if I talk about this particular process, that why have we
okay.
done this thing, config is nothing, because you are
Mm,
retrying. So you're coming
mm.
back to init state, and you cannot, there's no point of reading the config again. So you're saying that if it has
Yeah,
already been read once, then there's no point of reading it again. But if it is for the first time you're reading it, because when you start the process, you won't have anything in config variable. So config is just a dictionary variable,
yeah.
and you have it
Anmol,
here. Yes.
can I ask you one question? Can you
Hmm.
explain why, like by using that Excel config Excel file, why we are using it? By just showing an example.
Yeah. So we'll just, move ahead in init all settings, and we'll see that how are we doing it actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming back, that if config is nothing, that is you're reading it for the first time. So then you go to init all settings. Now, if I click on import arguments, so
Mm,
we have here data config.xlsx, which is the path of the config file.
mm,
So we should, in real-time projects
yeah.
or talking about the production scenario, you should get this path from assets created in Orchestrator and not hard coding it here. Then
Mm,
coming to config sheets. So if I just open the config, so it's basically the sheet name of the Excel, which act as a config sheets. So
okay.
if I open it here, you'll have it here that we have settings, we have constants, and we have assets. So we are using setting
Can
and
you explain each
constants.
and every sheet?
Yeah, sure.
Can you explain each and
So settings is wherein you add all these things, that Excel file, a path to something, or the name of the orchestrator. assets which you have created. Like for example, if you're storing an ID password in Excel, so you store the asset name here, or you store the SAP executable path here, or you store the shared drive path where you have to place the status summary file, or you store the log file path where you're storing the log files, or where you're storing the exception screenshots. And constant, basically you explain here all the messages: system exception message, business exception message, the mail is being sent to whom, from which email account it is being sent to, and all these things. And then
So
again,
why we are making these two sheets separate, like these three sheets in separate?
okay,
Why it
so
is a
this is just a
need
best
for that
practice.
to
This is
make
just,
it?
yeah, this is just a best practice they have introduced. Obviously, there is no hard and fast rule that if you make one sheet, your program would not run. There is nothing like that. You can rename them, you can delete them, you can create 5 sheets, you can create 10 sheets. This is, they have just, provided a standard that you can follow this, because then everything would look a little more structured. There is no hard and fast rule that
Yeah.
you're bound to follow this thing, obviously, or not. And then also the RE framework would work. So you
Mhm.
can even name it
So you
according to
mean
your
that if we, yeah, like my question is, even for example, our application path changes. You only need to change the application path here, not to change in the activity.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
for example, in the open application,
Hmm. So
like in the open application, we are providing the path.
hmm.
So instead of that, we can change it here instead of changing there. Yeah.
Yes, so that's the whole purpose of configuration file, that you do not need to make all these
Mm.
changes in your code again and again. You just open this file and you make a
Yeah.
change here, and that's all, because it's way more easy than changing a value in Excel, rather than opening the whole code, searching where to change it and changing it there. So that's the sole purpose of this
Mm, mm,
configuration
mm.
file, that you change it here.
And what is the need of an asset sheet separately? There? Can't we have a sheet for, let's say, queues, etc. separately? Why there is a separate sheet for asset specified there?
See, yeah. So that's again a standard which they have provided, that you name all your assets you have created here. You can provide a description also, and this
Mm,
description is only for that if I have created this config file, and in future if you, I have led the team,
mm,
or you have joined it, or you are the client and I have made an attended board and it's on your machine. So with the description, you get to know that, okay, this fields belongs to what? What if I make a change in this? What is it
mm.
going to affect? So small
Yeah.
description. Then again, this is also not necessary. You may not want to, so you cannot. If you have a lot of queues, like 10 queues you have made, and those 10 queues contain different data, and you want to, categorize it
Mm,
differently so that it's more clear, you can have a sheet here, you can name it queue, in which you'll store the data of all the queues. That is all up to you, how you want to categorize, how you want to visualize.
uh, and like in this asset sheet, can we store the credential data
Like, you
or
mean the
text
password and
data?
all?
Can we also like yeah, yeah,
See, the assets
as
sheet.
default way?
Okay, I'll tell you what is the use of asset sheet. If I have a asset here, okay, so suppose
Mm,
if I'm having a value here, so my asset name is this, I'll copy this asset, I'll go here.
mm,
So that's my value. Okay. And if
mm,
I want to name this thing in my
mm,
workflow, I am saying that this is an
mm,
asset for, or I can say this is a credential for SAP. Okay. So this is
mm,
I'm going to use in my workflow. So in my workflow, I'm going to write that I'll have a get asset here. I'll drag this and I'll say that from the config, I'll paste the name here and dot toString.
is it the credential data?
So
Credential area.
So
It
for
contains username and password.
no, for username and password, you have to use get credential. This will get you the
Okay, fine,
values of type text
fine,
or
fine,
type
fine.
boolean. Okay, so I've stored this thing. So what is it is
So only text, Boolean, everything are stored in this asset sheet actually.
yes,
And
you can even
credential
store it.
data in normally we can store that. No.
You can no, you can store it here. You have to name it. So if you're talking about the credential, so
Mm,
for credential also you will have a name
mm,
of the asset and orchestrator. So you name it here. So see,
mm,
if I talk about credential, so this is a credential data, okay, which is of name
mm,
test cred.
mm,
So here in the asset sheet, I'm going to have test cred, and here I can have
mm,
credential underscore, you can say UI demo. Okay,
mm,
I have it here. Now, if I have to get the user ID and password from orchestrator using this thing, so what I'm going to do is
mm,
I am going to go to my code. I am going to do get credential.
mm,
I'll drag this thing here. In the asset name, I'm again going to write the same thing, that config. I'll write the name. I'll write dot toString. So what is it is going to do is it is
mm,
going to read this name here in config. It will read, okay, cred demo is the name. What is the value? Test cred. So it will go in the orchestrator. It will search, is there any asset of this name, test cred? Okay, it is there. So then get me the ID and password, and it will get you the ID and password in these two variables. So password
oh,
will be a secure string because that is how you deal in with the credential or confidential data, and username would be a string. So then you
mm,
enter that data in the required field.
mm.
Okay. So yeah, coming back.
Let's move how it actually converts to.
Yes, how we convert the Excel to dictionary.
Mm,
So we create a dictionary object of
yeah.
the type string comma object. Okay. And if you just read it here, it
So the key will
says,
be string.
yes, the key will be string and the value
The
will
key
be
would be
object.
string and
Object.
object. Okay.
Okay. So we create
Mm,
a dictionary of the type string comma object. And how do we do that? I'll show that also, because it's important to know that how it's done. So if I go here, or if I change the type of config file, so I'll go to browse for types. I'll type here
mm,
dictionary, and if you just scroll down, you see here system.collections.generate. You select here, and from here you select
yeah.
that string, which is name, and value,
Key.
which is object, and you click on OK. So that is how you
Mm,
select. Okay. So
mm,
what it's going to do is
right. Right.
we'll have this for each loop, normal for each loop, and we're going to
Mm,
iterate for each sheet in config sheets. And the type argument should be string, because we are iterating
mm.
over array of strings where each item is string. So we will iterate over that.
Oh, that file, the sheet.
Yes. So that is very important, that whenever
Mm,
you deal in with for each loop, you have to see on what you are iterating.
mm,
So if you're iterating on array of integers, then here your type argument would be integer. If you're iterating on array of strings, then your type
Visual.
argument is string. So you iterate on each string,
Mm,
which is you are iterating on each sheet, and then you do this read range,
yeah.
that from this particular Excel, from
Mm,
this whole Excel, first get me all the details of settings sheet. So you get everything here,
yeah.
you create a data table out of it, and now you are iterating on that data
Mm,
table. And when you are iterating on a data table, so then each row is a data row. So for that you have
mm,
another thing. So if you search for each, so you get two. One is for iterating on data table, and the
mm,
other is for iterating normally for each. And you have parallel for each also. So for
yeah.
parallel for each, there is a separate video on my channel, and you can check that. And for each is the normal for loop which we usually use, and for iterating on data table you have for each row. So then you iterate on each row and you extract the value, that string dot is null or white space row name dot toString, which is that if you add a blank row here, so it would not read this because you're checking that the row which I am reading, is it null or is there any white space? If it is null, then don't read it. So that is what the condition is. So if I just remove this
Hmm.
not, and if I say string dot is null or white space, so I'm checking that whether that particular row, is it null? And if it is null, then you don't read it. But if it is not null, then you read it. So what I'm doing is I am extracting the value and storing it.
So you are storing in a dictionary,
Yeah, we are storing it
the
in a
out
dictionary.
config dictionary.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So
So all
now,
the data from the config sheet you are converting into dictionary format, and
yes.
using the key value you are actually acquiring the value from that config sheet.
Yes, exactly. So now the config full file would look like that. We have this name here, Excel file. So it would be Excel file, which is the name
Hmm.
and colon, and this would be the value, just like JSON data. So this whole
Yeah.
thing would then be the value. So this config full file would then look like
Hmm.
this, that this is the key and this is the value. So it's just
Hmm.
like a key value pair.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. Now we have this initializing
So
assets.
when we write path of an
Sorry.
Anmol, like when we write the path of an application,
Hmm.
like when we, for example, we are opening an application. At that time, if we are in the application path, we can only specify the dictionary by using the key. We don't need to specify the value there. So whenever there is any let's say change in the application path, that can be updated in the config sheet itself. There is no need of updating in dictionary, like the key value part.
Yes, there's no need of touching the code at all. You just have to, update it here. So
Yeah,
suppose I am
yeah.
having this in F and
That's one of
UiPath in
the.
this folder. Now, after 10
Hmm.
days, my this exe has been moved to desktop or to some other drive. I just have to
Hmm.
open this Excel and update the path here. No need to touch the code.
Okay.
Okay. And now we're doing this try
Hmm.
initializing asset. So this is also what you get
Yes.
in usually when you create this RE framework, you get this thing already added. So now two things are possible, that if you
Hmm.
want to, load everything here only, you can do that, that whenever, wherever you're passing the setting constant sheet, just comma separated, you can
Hmm.
pass any other sheet name also. You can do that.
Hmm.
But what you already get created is this, you also have this get orchestrator sheet. And the only difference is that
Okay.
when you're iterating on each row of asset, you already have a get orchestrator asset placed here. If you're placing this asset thing
Hmm.
over here, then what is happening, you cannot put a get orchestrator asset here, because then it would try to,
Oh,
get the value of other sheet also, and then it might cause an error because that value wouldn't be present on
yeah.
any asset.
Error.
So this is the difference,
Um,
that assets.
Anmol, you you told me that in that asset sheet we can also define credentials. But this get orchestrator asset actually take only that asset value which are actually text, boolean, or anything apart from
Yes.
credentials.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
so that
at
is what I'm
that
telling you.
time,
Yeah, so you'll have to, modify it accordingly. If you're following what template they have
hmm,
given is, then you only store asset in it. But
hmm,
if you're storing credentials also in it, then accordingly you'll have to specify it
hmm,
here. Let's suppose if you're storing two types of credential, you're storing
okay,
SAP credential or you're storing any other
hmm,
credential. So what you can do is, when you log into any
hmm,
application, so you have init all applications here. So suppose your process involves SAP
hmm,
and you are storing SAP credential in
hmm,
orchestrator. So you store it, that
hmm,
SAP credential, anywhere. You can store it in any of the sheets. Okay.
yeah,
Maybe not in, then yeah. So you're storing that credential maybe in constant, maybe in settings, maybe in queues. You can store it anywhere. So in that sheet, what you're getting is
hmm,
the name of the credential by which it is stored in the orchestrator. So what you can do is when you are actually
Yeah.
logging into that application or in Init all applications, there you can just drag in get credential and pass it the name, and you'll get the username and password, and you can accordingly pass
Okay.
that username and password to that particular system. But if you have a lot of assets already created in Orchestrator, then you follow this thing that you read the assets separately and load them.
Mm.
Okay.
So there's an exception also there. They also provide a try catch there.
So
If the asset is not loaded
yeah, because
or
there could be a
separately.
scenario, wherein you have mentioned
Mm.
some asset in your Excel, but it is not present on Orchestrator. Then it would throw
Mm.
an exception that this particular thing has not been
Oh,
found in Orchestrator.
yeah.
So for that, you have this try catch here.
Mm.
So suppose if an exception is thrown from here that a particular asset is not present here. So you see it's written even here that
Mm.
if asset name is not specified, then what? Okay, so you log this thing that
Mm.
loading asset failed, and this is the exception message. If you want to do something in
Mm.
finally, you can do it here, that you close all your
Mm.
applications and all of that, those things you can do in finally, and an exception is thrown then from here in it all settings, and then it goes out. Now if you come here,
Mm.
here also a try catch is there. That exception would come from internal try catch to this try catch, and here you'll assign your
Mm.
exception to system exception. And once you
Mm.
reach here, you have nothing in finally, then what happens? Then it would check for the state transitions, because it has executed everything, it has come
Mm.
the outermost thing. So try catch is the outermost thing. Try you have executed, and then now you come here to catch. You don't have anything in finally,
Mm.
so it would check that when
So,
to go in get transaction or to go in end process.
and so can we add more exception scenarios also there apart from this?
Yes, you have to just
Like,
you see here
mm.
it's add new catch here. You click
Yeah.
on this, you go, you can select
Yeah.
argument, exceptional reference. You can even browse for types, and you can have business exception. Here you have business exception. You can definitely add it. You can, add what all
Mm.
like actions you have to take in case of business exception. You can add n number of type of exceptions here.
Mm.
And
Got it. Got it.
so that all what happens in init. And also you have this init all
Mm.
applications here. And so you pass
And can you explain what is the use of it? That can you move to me? Can you explain what is the use? Just scroll up. Yeah. Can you explain the concept of this if sequence? What is the use of this if sequence?
Okay, yeah, sure. So if in
Mm.
case we are dealing in with queues, so then what happens? We have to check.
Mm.
So we are having an argument here in orchestrator queue name. Okay. And you also have an
Mm.
annotation here. If you just read it, it says allows the orchestrator queue name to be
Mm.
passed as an argument instead of only
Mm.
defined in the configuration file. So there are two ways.
Okay.
One way is you define your queue name in Excel. The other way is if
Excellent.
in future, suppose there is a change in queue name or you want to refer to a different queue, then what happens? That if you
Mm.
defined as an argument, so when you upload it to orchestrator or you publish your package, so you have this option that while publishing or
Mm.
while running that process, you can pass your orchestrator queue name. So it is saying that string dot is null or white space in orchestrator queue name, and there is a not before it. So it
Mm.
means that if this particular thing is
Mm.
not empty, that is when you go to orchestrator, you
Mm.
go to process, and when you're creating a process, I already have this package published. So if I select UI demo 2 and
Mm.
I select an environment, and if I go here, so I have in orchestrator queue name, wherein I can pass my queue name from here itself, from the orchestrator. So this is the purpose. So if I
So
give
it will over. It will.
yeah,
it will actually overwrite whatever it is in the config file.
Yes.
If you
So,
provide the queue name here, it will actually overwrite what is. Okay.
yeah. So that is what it is saying, that if this is null or empty, then pick it from config. But if somebody is passing some value, if I'm saying that, okay, use this particular queue and I'm passing the queue value here, I'm creating that process to run. So then it would pick up that queue name.
Hmm.
So you see that what it is doing, it is
Hmm.
overwriting the config orchestrator queue name with the queue name I have passed.
Hmm.
So this is the use of it.
Okay.
And if I move to init all
Hmm.
applications, so I pass in my config value here. So this config is now passed to this application, and in this application, I can log
Hmm.
in or I can open any system in which I have to. So it is init all application, that you open the system, you log into the system in which you log in.
So,
So I have
so
logged
in
in.
this workflow, we
Hmm.
are actually making the sequence. Like in this sequence, we are actually making the sequences where we are actually logging to applications or logging to web browsers.
Yes, yes. So yeah, it's just for, logging, and it's not necessary that you do it here, but yes, it is advisable to do it here, that if you're
Hmm.
using any system, you can log in from here. So I've just entered the user ID password and clicked on login, and then checked that whether login is successful or not. And then,
So what is the need for checking whether login is successful or not? Because we are providing correct credential. So and what is the need of providing this condition? Like
okay,
anyway, we are providing correct credentials.
yes,
So what is the need of providing this condition?
okay. So many a times what happens that, okay, you are providing the correct user ID or password, but what if the password has expired? There
Hmm.
are a lot of systems in which password gets expired. Then according to you are providing the right
Hmm.
password, but according to the system it has already expired and you need to change it. So you won't be able to log in, and how you will get to know that you
Hmm.
haven't logged in? So this is a very, common business exception which you need to handle. So you have to check whether it has been logged in or not. And
Okay.
also there are a lot of times scenarios that you're not able to, so you have entered the ID and password, or maybe you're not able to enter it because that system is down. So you are entering the ID password, you're clicking on
Hmm.
login, but you're getting a message that, okay, this particular system is under maintenance. So you would never get to know that what has
Ah.
happened. So only if you check that whether I am inside the
Oh.
system or not, then only you'll get to know that, okay, I am not able to
Hmm.
log in due to some XYZ reason. And then you'll log into the server and check that what
Okay.
is the reason. So it is very necessary, even if the business or the client does not tell you, it is a very basic business validation which should be taken care if you're dealing in with any
Hmm.
application, even if it's SSO, it's single sign on. Then also you should make sure that whether you
Hmm.
have landed to the page you desired, or if the system is down or for any
Hmm.
XYZ reason. So this should be checked and accordingly notified if the login is not successful.
What type of exception we are throwing the? What type of exception we are throwing the?
So usually what is it that it totally depends on the setup. If you have to notify your support team, or if there is a support team which is looking into all this, then you can throw a system exception and you can notify the support team. But if the business says that, okay, I also want the notification, then you can throw the business exception, and then accordingly you can not inform the or notify the business. So it's all up to the process, dependent
Uh,
how you tackle the exception. And
but this business exception is actually thrown when data is incorrect everything now. So I think in all scenarios we should provide business rule exception.
see, it's
Is
totally
it
dependent on
right?
different type of process. No, it's not like that, that only in the
Mm.
in the case of incorrect data, that's a business exception. If you're not able to log in, if the password is expired, then also it's a business exception. But then it
Yeah.
totally depends on the type of process or on the type of operation you're performing, because
Uh,
there are some systems in which you may not have the right to log in, or access it, and it's the business who has provided you the credentials. So in all that case, it's a business exception.
Mm.
They need to be notified.
So if the system is down, so it is a case of like even we try to log in, the system is not able to log in. So at that time, it is a case of a system exception.
See, those are the things which depends on process to process, and it is all clearly mentioned in the process design document or the requirement and design document when we create.
Mm. Okay.
So coming
So
to,
if we
yeah,
like, can I ask a question?
yes.
What happens if we didn't throw an exception there? We didn't use a throw activity
Hmm.
to throw an exception there. What happens actually? What is the necessity of
So,
providing a business exception there?
okay, so suppose you have not thrown an exception and you're not able to log in. So your flow would
Mm.
come
Mm.
now then to process transaction, and it would go to process,
Mm.
and then it would start typing into,
Mm.
because you have a type into here. It would not be
Mm.
finding that type into field,
Mm.
and then there the UI
Mm.
part would throw an exception that could not find the selector.
Mm.
So then that would be an abrupt end of your process, because you have not handled the exception well, and the bot will break here only, that
Mm.
selector not found. So that is
Mm.
not what is advisable. You must,
Mm.
end your process or give a logical ending, and accordingly notification to
Mm.
the concerned team.
Mm. Mm.
So that is all. We have covered the whole init state, and in the next video we'll be covering how to, decide on these transitions and about the get transaction data. So
Mm.
yeah, that is all. Nived, do you have any other question?
No, Anmol.
Okay, then I think, yeah, we have deep dived too much into init state. I hope it is useful to everyone. Thanks for watching the video, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.